crooked. Don't worry. Just go. They ain't nobody gonna notice.
I was going to stop it, but he told me to keep going. So here we go. Here's the intro. Trump talks Texas. Texas? Secession. What did Trump talk about? Oh, this and more.
On top of us.
I don't even care.
I don't care.
Welcome to the Self-Evident Podcast. You got Mike. You got Massey.
Ding.
I'm going to be honest. You look a lot shorter than me in the image right now. So I'm going to adjust your camera just for a second.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
On camera. So you go ahead. You give them all the intro, and they'll get to see real world action. Yeah, producement.
What's funny is I adjusted all of these cameras before we even started. Did I not? I was like, yeah, that looks good. I think it's because, too, you're taller than me from here and up. Yep. So when you sat in this chair, you were a jerk and you didn't hunch over.
I'm sorry. I'll hunch next time.
Yeah. You just got a hunch, you jerk. Did you realize you're teaming with a hobbit? Thank you. Ding. I think it looks better. Guys, welcome to Self-Evident Podcast. Again, like he said, if you have not tuned in to the last recent podcast we've been doing some really cool messages. We're going to come up with some doozies here very soon. Go to theselfevidenttruth.com. You guys can find out more about our mission, what we're doing. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in and having fun with us as we continue to do what we do, because we love having fun. But also, there's some serious issues out there that we need to address for the public. I know a lot of you have been paying attention to the podcast we've done before about voting the lesser of two evils. We just did a podcast, and that was with my good friend, Pastor Jared Sparks, out of Illinois. We also have a pastor from North Carolina talk about how the church is kicking butt out there in North Carolina.
Not literally.
No, but they're doing great. And so that, and then now talking about what we're talking about, and forgive us, we didn't do a podcast Wednesday. I'm preparing for a men's conference here this weekend, and I just had a lot to do, so forgive us for that. But Mike and I are back in studio, as always, the tandem. So go to theselfevidenttruth.com. You guys can find out more. We have merch, which Mike never wears.
I'm self-conscious.
And you guys can purchase merch to help us continue the fight.
Actually,
and do what we do.
Do not use the word never. I do wear it.
Yeah, when I pay him.
Hey, gotta make money somehow.
Gotta make money somehow, dog. So, guys, welcome. We got a lot to talk about. Trump has now promised, and Mike's gonna kind of head this one up because he came up with this morning. He goes, "Oh boy, it's gonna be a doozy." We had a lot of so him and I discuss a lot of different things every week. Like, hey, let's talk about this. Mm-hmm. Let's chime in. You guys are gonna see next week. We're gonna have some maybe next week.
I think we can do it next week.
We're gonna
Possibly
hit on
Monday.
We're gonna hit on some questions we even have as Christians and what the church is doing, not as a cap to the church, as a have we been thinking about this wrong according to Scripture? You know, have we been looking at Christianity wrong in some sense? And do we value more emotionalism over the gospel of Jesus Christ and all those other things? So we're going to be talking about that soon. But this, he came up with this morning. I thought, man, this is a really good topic because taxes have been an issue for a long time in our nation. We have the libertarian class who's like, get rid of all taxes. And the conservatives are like, yeah, we'll get rid of taxes, but they never do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and then you have the left who's like, more taxes, tax the rich. It's unfair. They need to pay their fair share, you know? So Pete Trump goes out and says, you know what? What about abolishing the income tax? Just a haymaker, dude.
I love this. So Deccan Herald. I'm going to put up this slide. Deccan Herald. Declan?
Yeah,
Declan Herald.
It says Deccan.
Yeah. I've got Deccan in it, but then on the slide I've got that. Let me look on the slide. Looks like Deccan.
Okay.
We're pros. We pros.
Guys, forgive us. We're doing our own thing right now. And if you can't see that you would screw up too and it's a little nerve-wracking, well, right, Pharisee.
Yeah. Oh, there it is. There it is. All right. So during a Fox News segment on October 21st, Trump took questions at a barbershop in New York City. The guy is black. He's black. He is more black than Charlemagne the God, I guess.
Jeez.
Trump's been shot. The government's after him. They're trying to throw him in jail.
Dude said that. He goes, "This guy's the blackest president we've ever had." And it was a black guy, and the other black commentator goes, "More than Obama?" He goes, "Oh yeah." He goes, "My man's going to be on probation when he becomes president." And dude, they're all laughing. And then he says he gets shot and throws up the black power. I was like, dang. These are black dudes talking about it.
I could go even farther with it, but I won't. There's personal life stuff that you might make a stereotype on, but we're moving forward.
Dude, he was gangster.
He's gangster.
That was gangster.
Yep. So, when asked if the U.S. could potentially end all federal taxation, Trump said the country could return to the economic policies in the late 19th century when there was no federal income tax. He said it had all tariffs. It didn't have an income tax. He said, now we have income taxes and we have people that are dying. They're paying tax and they don't have the money to pay the tax.
Right.
In June, Trump had actually floated this idea of replacing federal revenue from income taxes with money received from tariffs. And we'll get into all of that. You may go, how is that going to work? A little hinty hint. You may not be able to have the government you've gotten used to. Trump has not provided specific details of how that would work. It is unclear if he wants to eliminate all federal taxes, including corporate income taxes and payroll taxes, or only end the individual income tax. I get this image of Oprah going, we're going to cut the tax there and cut the tax there. We're going to cut all taxes everywhere. Please.
Yeah, and if you look at income tax, especially in the middle class as a whole, yeah, you're looking at about what? Let's just ballpark it. And I may be
at the end of the day, 30% or 20 to 30%,
right
like
of
that.
the revenue. So in his mind, he wants to raise tariffs a certain amount of percentage. I think the biggest question is, can he do it? I don't foresee him doing this. I think it's a good talking point. I just don't think it's going to pass.
I'm with you.
Because the number one thing we've done in our government is learn to grow it. And the second thing is we've put a lot of fear into it. So in other words, oh my gosh, what's this going to do? He's trying to destroy America. I think it's a good idea. I'm for it. And what that has to do is we have to look at the size and scope of what we've been building, because like the last few jobs reports from the Democrat side is we've increased this quarter to 20,000 jobs. This is the most in American history, folks. And he's not saying a majority of those are governmental jobs, governmental positions. And so that's what's been happening is we've been growing the size of government, making the numbers look good, conflating the numbers, but we've also been outrageously spending on government programs. Inflation has driven up costs. So what we're looking at we're looking at removing taxes on the left side as a problem, because it's like, oh my gosh, how are we going to get anything done? How are we going to feed the little turtles in the ocean that are dying from plastic straws up their noses? You know what I mean?
The one turtle video makes the rounds in the world.
You know,
we all got to suck through seaweed. Done with you.
Anyways, so back to this.
What was the sea turtle's name in Finding Nemo? Do you remember?
No, I never watched that movie.
Okay. Well, turtle, you're on blast. Sick of these seaweed paper straws that dissolve as soon as you put it in my drink.
Yeah.
So I'm done with you. You're going to die because I'm sick of this inconvenience.
Yeah. Nothing like trying to suck a Diet Coke through a piece of paper.
Yes. Because that makes sense. We have to replace plastic. What should we use? What's the most dissolvable thing possible in liquid? Paper.
All this because of my government. Right? Let's keep funding my government so they can give us paper straws.
Yes.
Because that's what we need.
Are you happy with your paper straws?
Yeah.
If not, vote Millier. Trump.
So Trump, if you get in, man, cut taxes.
Yes. Because taxes
get rid of government, dog.
Back plastic straws.
Get rid of government. Well, just the regulation, dude.
Right?
Just get rid of it. Golly.
All right. So also, Trump had talked about ending double taxation for Americans who live overseas. This one always got me, that
I agree.
You could move out, go to another country, but the IRS is like, well, hold on now. Hold on. You were born here. You owe us money.
Yeah, so are you free now on your life, liberty, and property?
Right. Oh, no, we own you no matter where you... They are God. They're flat out God.
That's right.
We'll find you anywhere in the world.
That's right. Because... once again, my government.
That's it. My government.
My government. But my government.
My government. All right. Slide 3. Blowing through this. So CNBC reports, so far the Republican presidential nominee has officially proposed eliminating income tax on tips. Sounds good to me.
I think it's good.
Yeah, right?
Like, why would you make someone pay a tax on me gifting benevolence to somebody? To me,
That's the exact point.
A tip is a gift. Hey,
It's a
man, you
gift.
did so good. Way to go, man. Here's a 20. Why would you tax a gift?
And that gets into, people think, oh, I'm taxed on my income tax. No. Your dollar is taxed at every single level, no matter where it goes.
Truth.
Every exchange of your dollar, it gets taxed. Why? You earn your paycheck at a business. Well, guess what? That business actually has to pay tax on what they pay you. You pay tax on what you get paid. Then you go and buy something at Walmart, or Aldi's, or Publix, or whatever store of your choice.
Right.
And you buy a let's say a non-food item, because then there's a sales tax. You get sales tax on that. Then you go and you could be taxed on the gifts you give, right? You could be taxed on. Now you don't trust me.
I thought, because I just picked my nose. And I thought, did he switch that camera angle? Because like, there was a hair bothering me. Awesome. We're keeping this in, right? Sorry.
Part of the problem with not having a producer is
they're at
it's
home.
us. So there's no no behind the scenes
what's
going on.
And I'm like looking over at the thing, and I'm like, oh dang, is that my camera?
Meanwhile, the audio listeners are going, what
is going on?
What happened?
Yeah.
Mike was on a train, and then all of a sudden,
I'm sorry,
something about
dude.
nose pick.
I'm so
No, you're
sorry.
good.
I'm so sorry. So
I would be worried about that too. But your dollar,
Yes.
right? Your dollar gets taxed everywhere it goes. So let's say you put gas in your car tank. You earned your money, which of course you got the income tax on. Then you
Right.
go pump your gas. Well, you get taxed on the gas. And then you get on the road. Well, you're getting taxed for your property taxes and stuff for your road tax.
Right,
Because
right.
of
And
course
the
you got to
city-
get taxed for that.
and then each business gets taxed about that same
Oh,
road
yeah,
that the
yeah.
house was taxed about, right, to
Yeah.
grow. And then we send our kids to schools. We got to get taxes more because of the schools that we send them to, because businesses already pay tax for the roads and the schools and the, you know what I mean? Like, it gets worse and worse and worse and worse.
And can we get cynical for a second?
Sure.
Government, this is part of what frustrates me about this whole thing. You tell me, okay, you have to report. Okay, how much do I owe you? Nah, we're not going to tell you. You got to figure it out. Do you know? Well, yes. Okay, so what happens if I'm wrong? Well, we'll fine you. So why don't you just tell me? Not how this works. Dude, you gotta come up with it
I've
and tell
never
us.
heard of that, but that's so good. We know what you owe.
So tell me. No.
You got to
Can't
pay
tell you.
somebody to do it.
Yeah. That's it. My conspiracy theory is the whole IRS
Right.
tax system is upheld by CPAs and accountants. You guys are on blast.
Well, but here's the thing. Like, let's go with abolishing property tax, right?
Yeah.
I find it ironic that a person has to pay tax on their property to the city or the state, whatever it is. And then when you want to make a home improvement, you got to pay another tax to make a home improvement.
Great point.
Right? So I'm paying for the property, the value of what I have. I'm trying to increase the property level and the value, but you have to make me go get a permit to go do the work on my house to increase its value.
Oh my God.
It's like triple taxation all the time. Like there's always more and more and more and more. In PSL, I can't pull out my tree stump in the front yard. They'll fine me for it if I don't get a permit for it. It's like to pull out a tree on my property that I just paid tax on.
Dude.
I have to pay another tax to pull out my own tree of the house that I bought that I'm paying property tax on every year.
Right. Which invariably would most likely raise your value. Now, maybe only a little bit, maybe only $50, but you don't have an ugly tree stump in front of your house. So
Right.
your value goes up, right?
Now I can cut it down to the stump and leave it, but I can't pull it out of the ground.
PSL is like, oh, your shingle flew off? Well, that'll be a $300
there's a
permit.
code
Yeah,
violation?
code violation, and we'll charge you until you fix it. Oh, by the way, we're going to charge you to get a building permit in order for you to replace that shingle. Oh, and then of
They
course,
have to inspect it.
yes, we have to inspect it, which of course you pay an inspection fee. And by the way, if your house is looking clean and is ship shape and it's up to code, well, then your value increases. So when we appraise it again, your value goes up and your property tax goes up. Now I get it.
Mm-hmm.
Now I get it
Same.
why people are like, just do away with government.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's so inefficient. So when he's talking about taxing, the conservative side of me says, well, government's incompetent anyways because it's comprised of people. Government is not an entity. It's comprised of people. Mike and I were talking off camera for a little bit about what's legal, what's not legal, what should we create laws about. And one of the things that bothers me is government says it's not right for people to do certain things. That's why we regulate it. It's so crazy, though, because those same regulations don't apply to those same people in government positions.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, like, the people are wrong, but us up here, we're not. And that's the that's the purest form of definition of tyranny. That's what it is when government can do what you can't. So what he's proposing here is it will eliminate a lot of money into the federal government. However, what the economists aren't talking about in some of these things is when you reduce taxes on people, when you cut that out, that gives people more spending power. Spending power dries up revenues. Revenues dries up taxation. Taxation from the states then can pay into the federal government. And it could be an even trade-off. We don't know. But people do spend a lot of money because innovation in the United States is insane. Mm-hmm. We're always coming up with something new.
And to that point, when Trump talks about the 1890s, he actually said, so in the CNBC report, he said, in the old days when we were a smart country, because you'll notice Trump repeats everything 2, 3, 4 times to put it into your brain. It's actually a tactic.
It is a tactic.
People think he's dumb and he's just repeating himself. No, it's a tactic because it's an earworm that he puts into your brain.
Truth.
So he says in the 1890s and all, this is when the country was relatively the richest it ever was. It had all tariffs. It didn't have an income tax. He said, now we have income taxes and we have people that are dying. Now, I'd like for him to expand on this whole people are dying thing. And I don't necessarily disagree, but it's kind of a hard sell to say taxes equal death. But either way, he's not wrong when he talks about the fact that, look, we were a more prosperous nation before we got invested in this whole income tax thing. Now, you may think, well, income tax is just how it's always been. No. And we'll get into the constitutional aspect of this and the history of this. But just as a little taster for you, income tax, it was debated. It was temporarily put in place during the Civil War and then quickly found now unconstitutional. It got argued about, unconstitutional. And then like 2 years before the 16th Amendment, it's a constitutional thing.
Yeah, because the government has the authority to taxate. And it doesn't mean what they took it as, but that proves how bad things have been interpreted for years through courts and whatnot and legislation. Like the one question that these lawyers, that these court systems aren't asking themselves is this. At the founding of a nation, our America, when we broke free from the land of Great Britain and we said we're going to be a sovereign, independent nation and we want people to be free, do you think they were up there thinking about how then can we strip the rights of the people and take their money? Because that's what the King of England was doing.
Yep.
You and I are teaching a Constitution course at the church, right? Because we've developed it and we're going hard at it as far as teaching it as quickly as we can. But when you look at the weeks, this is just a plug, shameless, weeks 3 and 4, and you can speak on the other.
I actually took from the Constitution course to help round this whole thing out. So
but just go with me for a minute because I'm not going to hit on what you're hitting on.
No, you're
but
good.
What's happening is in 3 and 4, when you look at the Townshend Acts, when you look at the Stamp Act, all these were tariffs placed on the people themselves. And all of a sudden, the Americans at that time would fight against it. They'd be like, yeah, we won. And all of a sudden, yeah, you know what? Poof, another one. And he'd figure out a way to just keep heaping on coals on their heads.
Punishment.
It was punishment. Tariffs were punishment. Taxation was punishment against people to make them submit.
Oh, dude. So
we're not looking at taxation that way right now.
yeah. And something you and I have got to talk about off camera after we get done is I found some stuff about FEMA that I kind of want to cover as a podcast. Just, dropping the nugget for you guys. But that whole, like, what is FEMA really there for? Anyways, no, you're right. Like, taxation ends up, and people have said, and nobody's really disagreed with this concept. If you want to punish a behavior, tax it. Someday somebody's gonna make a montage or compilation of all of Mike's, vocal.
But you don't
screw-ups.
have a lot of gaffes. You're really a thinker.
It's like when I'm reading, I'm like, audio listeners are going, gross. That sounded
ASMR.
awful. Yeah. 8 hours straight of that.
It would sell.
Anyways,
It would sell on TikTok.
It
That's for darn
would.
sure.
There you go. There's your moneymaker. Somebody do it. Just credit me. But this whole idea of taxes, nobody's really disagreed with the fact, look at cigarettes. How did they help kill the whole cigarette movement? Now, you had that whole, I don't remember, do you remember what the movement was called? The commercials, the orange, was it Truth Project or what was it called?
Yeah, it was Truth Project.
Truth Project?
Yeah, it was,
where like the kids were
about
laying,
tobacco and it was
they were
truth.
like laying like dead bodies in front of cigarette makers or whatever.
Yeah.
I do think that whole movement helped take a big chunk out of the cigarette market. But it was also taxes. Taxes, like government decided, we're going to go after the cigarette makers because guess what? That makes us look good and makes them look evil. So we'll just tax and tax and tax. So then the guy who got off his 16-hour shift at the welding shop and wants to go buy a pack of cigarettes, he's not paying $3 a pack. He's paying $8-9 a pack because of all the taxes. The taxes are there to try and discourage you from doing this action. Now, that can either be conscious or subconscious. And at the same time, it's not necessarily just a tool of discouragement. It's a tool of, here's a pinch point where I know I can make money.
Right.
Death taxes, right? Capital gains taxes. Why would it be that Kamala and the Democrats would be like, unrealized gains taxes? Without even thinking about it, yeah, we'll tax unrealized gains. Why? Because they see a pinch point where they can make money off you.
Right.
And that's really, government is the greediest entity in all. You point the finger at capitalists, at the companies,
And their greediness.
and they're greedy. Look at government. Government doesn't even give you a product. You say, well, they give me a Social Security check. It's your own money. Or they take your money and they give it to somebody who hasn't earned anything.
Right.
Who's getting it for free.
It's so crazy because you're taxed from the government on your income. Part of that is going into Social Security. And you talk about this in one of your slides here that it's actually here that he wants to get rid of taxes on Social Security.
Yeah.
It's funny that you've been taxed already on the income that you have, part of it going into Social Security. Then you're taxing that money that you put away.
It's so insane.
Backwards, dude. And again, this is why us are so cynical of government. No matter who's running for it, I don't trust anybody that runs for office. I personally cannot trust people because not because I don't trust them as good people. We're all like, if I was up in government, I would expect people to distrust me.
Yeah.
Because nefariousness and wickedness,
They run rampant.
I could fall, dude. I could do something stupid and unknowingly or knowingly strip away your rights because of a bribe or something like that. You've got to be distrustful of government. You have to be.
And and it's not to say that there aren't those politicians who you're like, I think this person is doing a good job. I'm with Massey of like, but be careful, right? And it might get into that whole like trust but verify idea. Like, okay, you're a good person, but I think about like a Rand Paul, a Ron Paul, or a Thomas Massey. It's like, in general, it's like he's probably trying to do something good.
Right.
But with you, just like you're saying, I totally agree but is it just, he's a great guy and he's going to do everything
Right.
Careful.
100%.
But even in overtime pay, so Trump's laying out like income tax on receipts, Social Security benefits, income tax, overtime pay. This overtime pay, I remember, dude, when I was in the oil field, guys flat out told you, don't work more than a certain number of hours. Because once you go over that certain number of hours, then the tax that gets laid on you, it's not worth even working
100.
because you end up paying more in the tax than you're really earning and doing that overtime. So it's like your trade-off there.
Because he also
it's
talked about
crap.
getting rid of taxation on overtime.
Yeah. Exactly. Saying, which is good. It's good. It's like we've jumped into this idea that government must be there. Well, and then we must fund it. Well, how are we going to fund it? We must take money from the general population because government does not earn money. It does not earn money. It steals it.
Yeah, can we, because I want to get
Jump
to...
where you want to go. Go for it.
So the math doesn't work out. Garrett Watson said, a senior policy analyst and Nonpartisan Tax Foundation, every time they have to label...
Nonpartisan.
Every time they have to label nonpartisan, daggum well, it's a partisan thing. You know what I mean?
Totally progressive.
He said Trump's tariffs would raise approximately $3.8 trillion over the next decade, far less than the roughly $33 trillion of estimated revenue generated by income taxes over the same period. So he's actually he actually glossed over some very important facts here. And I'm just a guy. I'm not an economist or anything of that sort. But he's saying $33 trillion of estimated revenue coming through. Well, what if inflation keeps rising up? Are people going to keep working? Can we keep producing at this level? Well, jobs and businesses continue to decrease, right? Through this $33 trillion, is this because are they projecting a rise of income tax? Like, in other words, the percentage is going up over the next decade, which raises that revenue. There's so many factors he didn't include in all this that I think that's a great number, $33 trillion. And if that's the case, why don't we just reserve the $33 trillion, pay off our national debt?
Oh,
you know what I mean? Like,
great point.
Why aren't we doing that more and focusing on the debt? As a matter of fact, all this raising of revenue that this guy's talking about, why does the government have to keep borrowing every single year to cover the nut?
Right. And
all this raising does nothing.
Keep talking, because I want to look up what the interest payment is that we're paying.
Oh gosh,
per
daily?
year on our debt.
So gosh.
Keep talking. I'm going to look that up.
Yeah, and we don't even know the backdoor deals we're making with other nations that we're not putting in our debt clock. There's so many things that these economists will say to scare you. But one of the things that this economist did not do and talk about is how come government is so easily willing to say, well, guys, you have to maybe tighten your belt a little bit. Some of you businesses have to downsize because it's a tough economy, right?
You're right.
It's so funny they never talk about that with government.
Oh, heck no.
Tighten your belt, government. It's time for you to downsize because you don't have the revenue anymore. Why is it we don't talk to government the way that we talk to business? And why is it that we don't look at them the same way? We hired you, and you're not running the business very well. You need more revenue, and you still need to borrow more money after increasing my taxes. Who's the one at fault here?
Right. So you're telling me, well, I should just suck it up and pay more in taxes so you can continue to run something that fails.
That's exactly right.
In 2023, the federal government spent $658 billion on interest payments on the national debt. In 2024, it's projected that the federal government will spend $870 billion on interest payments in 2024. I want to know what Dave Ramsey would say about that.
Oh, Ramsey. Can you imagine what that guy's thinking right now as far as just the nation as a whole?
Could you... Dude, we should do this skit, and we should reach out to Dave Ramsey and be like, would you please do this skit with us? I want the U.S. government to call into the Dave Ramsey show. And Ramsey like, okay, what's your problem?
Yeah.
And the U.S., well, I've been spending a little more than I thought, and I got into a little bit debt. Okay, how much? Well, I think I'm at like $34 trillion. What?
And then he would go, all right, what's your income?
Right.
What's your interest payments?
Right.
Are you leasing cars?
And I want to see the U.S. government go, well, my interest payment per year is probably about $870 billion. You're stupid.
Yeah, that's right. We should totally get him to do it.
Dave, call me, please. This would be so much fun. I'll reach out to him on X. He probably won't respond, but Dave.
Dude,
this would be
great.
so much fun to do. Anyways, all right. So you're absolutely right. And one of the things that this economist doesn't talk about is the fact of he's projecting it at the current expenses of the government. So the number one question is, okay, where maybe can you cut expenses? It's kind of like when you get that person who's not real great with money, and they sit down and they go, I'm totally in debt and I'm paying a bunch of payments and bills and I need more money. I need more money. Okay. Well, what are you spending money on? Well, I've got Netflix and I've got Apple TV and I've got Hulu and I've got Amazon, and well, I've got this subscription for that diet program, and I've got this over here, and well, the kids have all of these programs, and well, I decided that I really need an Escalade to drive the kids around, and it's like at some point the Dave Ramsey goes, "You are stupid," and we're not, and everybody's got their pet project, so people aren't willing to look at the U.S. government and go, you're spending millions of dollars on this stupid art program grant in this one city because the representative in that district put in their little pork project so they could vote yes on that big spending bill. People don't understand that's how that works. Oh, well, you want to vote yes for this? Well, yeah, we'll write in $20 million for that bridge project in your district, so you'll vote yes. So that's how we get all of this pork project omnibus spending bills. So then we look at the monolith of programs, this Leviathan that has its tentacles in every single little spot in the world. And we go, why are we spending trillions of dollars every year? What program can we cut? And at some point, somebody raises their hand and says, well, don't cut that because I want the lesbian queer basket weaving of Brooklyn, New York grant program.
Satire. It may not be, but satire.
It's the Babylon Bee is just a reporter of reality at this point.
It is.
So I could probably write for the Babylon Bee.
Yeah, you probably could.
Anyway, so taken together, these reforms could leave about 93 million people off the hook for at least a portion, if not all, of their income tax. Of course, CNBC is reporting this. So, we have to couch it as 93 million people are off the hook of paying taxes. Or 93 million people are actually free to keep their money that they've earned.
Spend it, invest it, do all that stuff.
I get so tired of this. Anyways, so I'm not even going to run the slide, but in June, he had actually announced this. So this isn't the first time. Of course, it's coming back because he talked about it at this barbershop. Trump is black. Now, Trump is not the only one who has talked about this. In Argentina, we've had Milei, who announced the dissolution of Argentina's tax bureau. Just imagine for a second that in America, Trump signed the executive order to end the IRS. And you heard clapping around the world. They're replacing it, Argentina.
This is so dope.
Argentina, they're replacing it with a simplified agency and will cut a third of government jobs in the process. The office of the president said that the closure of AFIP is essential to dismantle the unnecessary bureaucracy that has hindered the economic and commercial freedom of Argentinians. Statement also said it would eliminate rules ensuring large salaries for senior officials, lowering their pay to similar to that of a cabinet minister. Granted, Milei is a little crazy, but he seems to be having fun. After all, if you forget, his campaign was him holding a chainsaw. And, mind you, him standing in front of a Gadsden flag. This guy's my hero, dude. Him and El Salvador?
Yeah.
El Salvador's president, who's like flat out Christian, who talks about like
getting rid of gangs and whatnot.
Yeah, him and his cabinet like sitting there praying over stuff. Like
it's like, let's move.
Dude. If I wasn't so passionate about America, I'd be looking at property in Argentina or El Salvador.
And it's funny because people think reform cannot. This is what gives me hope. Other nations are beginning to reform right now. It's the big ones that are like the crazy weirdo psychos. But it's like, if those countries can reform after years and years of socialism,
thank you.
Why can't America?
Thank you. People get sick of it. People really get sick of it. And it's what we're fighting for is that people won't have to go through it in order to realize they don't want it. And I think that's what, if one of these things keeps me up at night, it's I fight so hard because I don't want people to have to go through something that's unnecessary. if you look at Latin America, heck, if you look at Africa, if you look at Russia, wherever this whole socialist communist experiment has basically centralization of government, it does not go well for people. And then they have to go through decades of torture before they finally throw off the shackles and say, you know what, we're done with this. I want to cut it off before it starts.
Right. And again, this proves that someone with guts has to go against the fray. Well, first off, in El Salvador and other countries, I'm sorry, El Salvador, Argentina and other nations, the people spoke. We're sick of this mess.
Yes.
Someone's got to come in. Yeah, he's a little crazy, but we got to reform it. Now, like that one in El Salvador or whatever, I think it's El Salvador, the Christian president there, the Christian person, you look at and you go, if the Lord could answer that country's prayers that way to start reforming from the inside out, I'm not looking for a theocracy. You know me, I love liberty. But the fact that you have that and that's ruling and say, okay, Lord, if you can answer their prayers, America's done its best to repent. So let's go after this.
I think,
you know what I mean?
I think most Americans, and especially the American Christian, has actually resigned to the concept of we will never get a good leader again.
So let's just vote for what we have.
Yeah, we'll never get a righteous leader, a good leader. It's always going to be the lesser of two evils. Like, I think we've given up hope that there can actually be good leaders.
Right.
And even the most ardent Trump supporters, their number one argument is, well, he's not perfect. He doesn't have the perfect character, but at least he's fighting for what I want him to. And I would love to have a candidate who it's like, this is a godly man. He's not perfect, but this is a godly, righteous man who is living righteously.
The intent of the heart is right.
Yeah. And I'm not going to go down that road because, of course,
Can we cover? Yeah, let's cover the constitutional thing and then because I think that's important too. You go ahead.
Okay. So the original document, the original Constitution.
The reason I want to cover this is because it's such an important question. A lot of people say, "Well, can't government tax directly? Isn't this And you have to ask yourself, why up until 1911 the government didn't directly tax people? All of a sudden, in 1911, they rule, oh, it's constitutional.
Oh, yeah, we can totally do it.
Right? You know what I mean? So that's why it's important to cover.
No, so Article 1, Section 9, Clause 4 of the Constitution, the original document. I'm not talking amendments. I'm not talking Bill of Rights. I'm talking the original framework of the government. In case you've missed it, the Constitution is the rules by which the government is to operate. It's basically the job description of the government. Okay, Congress will do this. This is how Congress will do it. This is the way they operate. President does this. This is how he operates. It's the job description of the various branches of the government. In that document, it says no capitation or other direct, I'm telling you, dude, montage at some point, or other direct tax shall be laid unless in proportion to the census or enumeration herein before directed to be taken. In other words, no direct tax. If they're going to tax the people, guess what? They tax the state, and it's apportioned out to the population of the state, and those people pay to the state to pay to the federal government for what? Because people think our government is federal government. That's not the original intent. The states were intended to be sovereign, their own entities, and they got together This is why Congress was in session or out of session. They got together at certain times of the year to handle affairs of how the states are interacting towards the outside world. Then Congress would go out of session. They'd go back to their lives. They would go do their thing. We got it stuck in our head, and this is why, again, Mike is so against the 17th Amendment.
16th.
So, well, I'm against 16th, but I'm against the 17th because we took senators, voting for senators,
yes,
and put it into the hands of the people.
Yeah.
As opposed to putting it in the hands of the state legislatures. What was that? That means the state legislatures voted for their ambassadors to the federal government. The federal government was a meeting of the minds of the state governments. It was not supposed to be a national government will of the people.
Yeah.
That's what the House was for. So the House was the voice of the people.
It's also the action wing of the people because that's where the purse strings are. That's where all the voting power is really. And the Congress was to say, hey, this is what's going on in our state. The EPA is not good for us. We need to repeal that. So you had the two. You had the interest of the state and the interest as a whole and the interest of the people as a whole, both equally represented. That was the point.
Perfect. And that's why taxation was no direct tax on the people. It was the states would determine, okay, what taxation are we going to allow to have?
Yeah, and it was by census. On us. And it was by census. It was by number of people, not percentage of income. So in other words, they would determine, okay, everyone's going to pay this flat thing. And then we send it into the states. Now it's different.
Yes, and that's exactly right. And that's what's frustrating about this. So in 1895, the Supreme Court held a general income tax was unconstitutional as an unapportioned direct tax, distinguishing it from a tax on business or employment income, which the court described as a permissible excise. So what's excise? It's basically like you spend money. Well, we could tax that spending of money. Or that was that whole transaction.
That was that whole interstate commerce kind of thing. Yes, because a person has a good or service, they hire a truck to haul it from Florida to California. You have all these roads that you're paying for. So there's taxes that I get what they were doing. It's inter and intrastate commerce.
And that's where excise taxes. So originally taxes were excise taxes and tariffs. What are tariffs?
Right.
Tariffs are basically a fee placed on goods that are imported.
Right. You're doing business with us. You got to pay a little fee for that because we got the greatest country on earth and that people are going to buy the stuff.
You want to float your Temu knockoff Chinese crap into our ports? Well, we're going to charge you for it. And now you notice in 1911, the court held that a tax on corporate income was constitutional as a uniform excise, a type of indirect tax. So notice how they'll if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile.
Truth.
So they walk in and they say, well, I mean, a corporate income, that's not an individual. Corporations, this is where your whole argument of corporations aren't individuals. You screwed yourselves on that whole thing. Because what they said was, well, corporations, they're not really individuals, and they're doing business. So it's an excise tax, really, if we're taxing the income on corporations. So whatever money a corporation takes in, since they're not an entity or an individual, well, that's an excise tax. They're taking it in through business and transactions. So, of course, we can take a little money off the top on that, which then in 1913, the 16th Amendment was passed, which said the Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes on incomes from whatever source derived, without apportionment among the several states, and without regard to any census or enumeration. That was a finger in the eye of every single citizen of America, because basically what it said was that whole Constitution thing about no direct tax, we're screw you.
Yeah, we're upending that. Not only that, it was a direct finger to the founders of this nation who said, we don't want government to become tyrannical again. How do we keep government small and in the hands of the people and the states themselves, not the federal?
Yeah.
The unique thing about our system is very few people realize that the founders intended the state governments to have authority, that the federal government was just a representation of the states to the world, to the globe. That's its purpose, to make sure that we could all be uniform, right? We have certain laws that we can't. But now it's completely flipped where the states don't have that same authority anymore, that it all comes from the federal government. So now the federal government, if they want us to teach us in schools, that's what we got to do. If they want us to do this for our cities, that's what we got to do. We want money from PPP, this is what we got to do. You know what I mean? And it's created this monster conglomerate. Why do they need to tax the people if they can just print money at will?
Whew.
See what I'm saying? It's crazy. It's a game. This is the biggest Ponzi scheme in global history. I firmly believe this.
I agree.
We cap on Brady Madoff, which we should have, right? All these things that had happened. But government does it every single day. And we're not calling this a Ponzi scheme.
Social Security is truly a Ponzi scheme.
One of the biggest Ponzi schemes. Dude, we would get upset if someone used a nonprofit's resources to go fund a building project that was not approved by a board. Yet we do that with Social Security. We do that with any other entity that we have in government, and it's a Ponzi scheme. We're literally doing the shell game and moving. And we would look at those people on the street as shysters. We'd say, he's just trying to give me a buck. So you just participate because you want to have a little fun. So it's a shyster. Here, we're allowing government to do it, and we say they're in for our best interest.
And of course, they'll hide behind, we can't move money around when it suits them, such as when FEMA runs out of money. But then we can give 178 million more to Ukraine the next day. Well, FEMA only has $45 million left. But Ukraine...
Right.
Let's give them a bunch of money.
And then Obama came out, a week ago, not even a few days ago, and said, Donald Trump's been lying to the American people. He's been saying that FEMA's been giving money to illegal aliens. That's just not true. Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's totally true.
Yes, it is. They've been found out so many freaking times, but these guys can get away with lying to their people. And guess what? It really is only their people in the media. Yep. And this is why we've been saying this for years. Don't turn your eye to the media. The media will lie to you, and its purpose is to sway you. That's the whole purpose of the media. What we're doing is we're trying to sway you to liberty. I have no qualms about indoctrinating people. I want freedom.
Isn't it?
I want liberty. I don't want you to be dependent on me, a government. I want you dependent on Scripture, the Christ of heaven, the God of heaven himself, the Holy Spirit to lead you, and freedom. I'm not ashamed of that.
Isn't it funny that we get called fascist for wanting people to have their own property, be able to grow their own food, do their own schooling, and do all of that stuff? Isn't that funny? That we're
crazy.
The fascists. So we got to get going.
Round her out.
But I want to. What are we willing to do on this?
What are we willing to put up with?
What to me, Trump? I hope you do it. I hope you cut every single government program. And I'm gonna say that there's a deep philosophical point in a classic movie that should be placed in canon. And this deep philosophical point perfectly encapsulates how I feel about the government. And so I'm just going to play this for you, and you guys let me know what you think if you agree with this.
Some of you may die, but it's a sacrifice I am willing to make. Let the tournament begin!
Government, that's how I feel about you.
Oh, Farquaad. Give me more Farquaad.
Dude, that movie really is a classic. The first one is total classic. I love that.
Epic.
But I'm sorry. Those of you in the Department of Ed, in the IRS, in the EPA, in the Department of Ag, all of you, some of you may lose your job. That is a risk I'm willing to take. So go to theselfevidenttruth.com. Get yourself some merch. Let us know how much you hate us on social media. By all means, don't bother emailing us. Just type it out so everybody can see it.
Lord of heaven and earth.
Oh man,
what are we gonna do?
Oh, we're making all the right people mad. Yes, exactly.
Freaking Farquaad. Farquaad 2024, baby.
You do realize what that name is a play off of, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, I can't say it on screen. Anyways, love you guys.
Farquaad.
Have a great